put some shows together. Get together with people that whose work you enjoy. If you've got classmates, colleagues, if you're have some art heroes, reach out, and see if there's a way to like put some shows together. If you're still making art, start with your own shows, but maybe invite a person or two to be in a show with you. You can do house shows, you can rent spaces, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, you do your path your way, and it doesn't have to be in a line, for heaven's sakes. It's like, just have fun with it. There's no rules.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rodney Veal. I'm the host of Rodney Veal's Inspired By. And today I get to have a conversation with a true lover of art and all things art making, an artist. She is the curator of the Springfield Museum of Art. We've known each other for a while, and she is a fascinating, dynamic, cool person. And I just wanted to share her with the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, here's Jennifer Wenker.
Hello.
Hello. I love it.
So
I
happy
love
to
it.
be here.
It's super exciting. It's super exciting. So, like I said earlier, this is this is your life. So, just so you know, I mean, because the thing is, no life journey is linear. You know this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have to ask the question, what was your dream growing up as a child? Because you're now a curator. You've been a curator, but what was your dream as a child? What was your original dream? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I absolutely wanted to be an artist. That's definitely what I wanted to do. Ever since I can, maybe like 3-4 years old, I just knew okay, there was a slight foray during the convoy era that I wanted to be a long haul trucker.
Okay, when did you want it to be a long? Would we? Why would you want to be? Just out of curiosity, what dream?
Bay City Rollers, convoy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, erase.
No, this is not one of those erasers. This is, but that's the whole thing. We all have that thing. I thought I was going to be a zoologist, but it was like, clearly I'm afraid of snakes. So that kind of killed the dream. I mean, I thought they were all be cute and attractive like zebras, but no, yeah, you got to deal with snakes.
Yeah.
Reptiles, not my thing.
I would say I do like snakes, actually. There was a time, so when we were kids growing up, right, there was lots of really good PBS programs, and there was a program called, oh my God, I'm going to forget it right now. It'll come back to me in just a moment, but you could write, they would showcase a child from around the world and talk about their culture and what they ate, and Big Blue Marble. It was called Big Blue Marble.
Okay.
I absolutely loved that show. And I had 3 different pen pals when I was a kid, one from Greece, one from French Canada, and another from Japan. And then I was pretty sure I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer, so I could just meet people everywhere. So I would say there's some side branches where I thought,
you just kind of kept going, but
that.
it was like, people in art. I mean, the thing is,
I know,
artists. I mean, it was just written.
Open, like ideas, right?
I love it. I love it. So, how are your parents about this whole notion of you wanting to be an artist, then National Geographic photographer, then this?
So all in, yeah. My mom was an elementary school teacher. She taught kindergarten, and my dad worked for the Air Force as he was a mechanical engineer, worked on the planes up at Rickenbacker. So he traveled a lot. And then my stepdad was a world history and government teacher. So we talked about, we talked about travel and culture and people and why people do what they do. And so, I don't know, it's just always lively. And they were always, the 3 of them, just extremely supportive of like any ideas. They challenge you a little bit, but always really lively conversations and really supportive of like, do something original, do something interesting,
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. But that's like when I've talked to other people on the show, the common denominator is always this adult figure, and usually it's a family member who just gets you. I mean, like no one gets you like a parent gets you. if they really get you. You know what I'm saying? Like in the sense of they're like, and you had three who just said, "Hey, you're into this. Let's keep it going." So
Yeah.
it's a really cool thing. I mean, that's a cool thing. And that's what I love about this podcast is like we kind of find out like, okay, I see through lines. I
Hmm.
get to see all the through lines to all these artists and these different genres. It's always someone who says, go for it. Like, okay, yeah, be open to ideas.
Yeah.
And so I mean, once you started to kind of, obviously, you have these ideas, like, you wanted to be
A lot of
on
things.
a lot of things, but when it came pushing to shove, when it came down to deciding, you get older, your teenage years, you start to kind of formulate a vision and a plan. And was it just like, I'm going to be an artist? And so,
No.
no, still, I love it. No, it was really cool because,
I would say, okay, we had an enrichment thing that started my 7th grade year, and some of the kids were invited into the art classes. And so in 7th grade, I got to take the high school art classes, and then I got to take them in 8th grade as well. And then I took them all 4 years of high school. So I definitely loved the arts. And my sister was in theater, and my mom made costumes, and we took dance lessons and piano and drawing. But at that time, I also thought Peace Corps. That's what I want to do. But then, like, how is Peace Corps going to do anything with me as an artist? So it's like I feel like there was always this parallel, whether I recognized it or not. I mean, looking back, it's easier to see it, but there was always this
right.
like
But at the
the
time, yeah.
through lines were like connection with other people, cultures, like a general, not a general, like an intense curiosity about people doing things differently than the way our family does things. And just like, just that, I don't know, delight in finding out like different cultures are just fascinating.
Yeah.
And that can be like a culture just like somebody else's family that's down the street is, doing something different than the way we do things. And so it wasn't until probably, I mean, we're skipping ahead a little bit, but it wasn't
That's
until
okay. Yeah.
grad school that I started thinking about curation really, really accidentally. I think in a really bad critique with a professor I didn't like very much.
Oh, don't we? I think it was we all had that one professor.
We've all had that, yeah.
Yeah,
And
mine was my drawing one professor, and I don't remember his
mhm.
name intentionally. Just oh, that critique was rough. I mean, it's like you would just go,
Yeah,
oh,
and so he was saying something to insult me, I'm sure. He's like, "Are you an artist or are you a curator?" And I was just like, "Oh, I'm an artist." And then the more I'd kind of like play with that idea, I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting." And it really put together some of the things that have always been part of my life. The fascination with
yeah,
like other people, their stories, their way of seeing the world, and together with the aesthetic sensibilities that I always felt like I could see patterns and connections,
yeah.
where I thought everybody could see the world that way, and then you don't notice that
Come to find out, yeah,
you don't
that
notice
you
that
don't.
you have something a little bit, I don't know, that's your thing, and I
It's
you
your
start doing
superpower.
that a little bit.
I,
It's
I well,
fun.
what I mean, the fact that he's like, "Are you an artist or a curator?" It's like almost like,
What
wow,
slam?
that was a slam. I was kind of like, dude, like, why? Well,
Can't you be
I
both?
that's a good. I was going to ask. I
Right?
mean, I think you can. I mean, personally, what do I, my personal opinion is that yeah, why were people so dead set on people being in a lane,
I know.
especially in
Yeah.
arts education, which makes no sense. But I think your curiosity combined with your aesthetic awareness and your knowledge of art and art making, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But that curiosity about the different cultures also is a curiosity about the why behind a piece of art.
Yeah.
Like what propelled them to go this direction? And you just kind of want to go down the rabbit hole and ask questions why, then show it, and hopefully people see what you see as the underlying question of the why.
Right, because it's always so, I mean, obviously it's so much more than just the formalism you bring to the studio every single experience that you've had in your life. And so even the most formalist piece has a story. And I want to know more about the person. And I appreciate the artwork. Absolutely. I absolutely
Oh,
appreciate the artwork.
yeah.
there's so many layers to the why, and like some of the shows that we have in the gallery right now are just fascinating because I came to the artist because of the formal properties, the aesthetic properties, and like just the fascination for how much work was put into the pieces. But then the story is like, oh, next level. These are so fascinating. And
Uh,
and then yeah, it's so much less about what medium, although the medium can be really exciting too. But
it can be, but
but
there's something else. The extra, the story, like you said, the story. That to me is like, I want to know why. What led you to this thing?
Mhm.
Like when you're looking at work, and that's got to be a fun place to be when you get to kind of play, not play, because well, I guess it is kind of a
It's a little bit
play,
of play.
a little bit of play.
Don't tell the
Like when you
others.
Shh, I know the world doesn't hear the
It's so
you
good.
don't hear this part that that we do enjoy what we're doing and looking at art. So this whole notion like when you got that challenge from the he or she who shall not be named professor, um, that curatorial it kind of sparked an interest.
It did. I kept making art, and most of the art was still about like community engagement and conversation. Like that's the part that really excited me more than just, not just, I don't want to minimize anybody's way of making, but for me, the part about making art is like sparking a conversation
Mhm.
and getting it. I really like intense dialogue.
No,
Going deep with another person and feeling that connection, like, oh, I really like the ideas that you're toying around with and turning over in your mind and the way you're parsing out, you know, um, these bits and fragments. And, because
yeah.
when you're making art, like there's a subconscious process happening and there are not words yet to describe the thing you're making because you're on the cusp of the next thing, and it doesn't necessarily have words yet to describe it or the
Mhm.
why. You just know that you're pushing,
You're you're acting,
you're
activating.
acting, right? You're activating, and so the process is a really big part of it. But it's exciting to know that like you're entering somebody's subconscious working space
Mm.
before they've attached words to it. It's all visual language. It's like metaphor and all that kind of part, which I find fascinating. I think a lot of introverts find that part fascinating. Like,
Well, I think
ooh.
it's like let's get
Ooh.
let's get into the. I mean, you really do get into the psyche of an artist and art making
Mhm.
when you look at work. And I always I always like to people, especially when they're looking at art, like don't do the drive by, don't glance and run, sit with it. I really do like to sit with a piece of art,
Mhm.
especially if it catches your eye, it
Yeah.
catches something in you, and you go, I need to stay here for a bit, and whatever that bit may be, stay there long enough to ask that question, like what led you to these choices and these, oh, this seems tortured, or this seems so thick, or this has a lightness to it, almost like a relief. You're I think you almost you use a lot more adjectives once you stay
That's
looking at a
right.
piece of art.
That's right. Yeah.
And I mean, and because a lot of thought goes into like, as a curator, and I was kind of I'm curious about, you and I've worked together, so we'll get to that. I mean, and curating, which is fun, by the way, people. It's so much fun to curate
It's so
with
fun.
Jennifer. It is really a blast. But there's something about this thing that artists that the audience may not understand, or our viewer, is that how much like placing I because I always think about this, like how you place a work of art in a gallery setting, because usually next to another work, or how it's positioned
Yeah.
in a visual field sense, can impact how you take in the story of
Mhm.
what the artist is making. So
Yeah.
when you're making those kind of decisions, what goes through your head when you're presented? Especially, there's two different ways, because usually it's one artist. Like you have the Amina Robinson, and that's
I do.
that's the journey
Great.
of her life, and I'm so glad we were able to tell that story on the show, on broadcast.
Mhm.
That's a talk about a life lived in art making,
Right.
decades, and it shows.
She's
But
phenomenal.
truly, I truly think, yeah, genius. But then you also do things with, you have multiple voices, where you have group showings with like different individuals. So how do you decide where things go? I mean, from your perspective, in a
Mhm.
space to maximize what hopefully the audience will take, which is less than a drive, more than a drive-by. I call them
Mhm.
drive-bys, and I see people in galleries like, man, you didn't capture that in 2 seconds. Give me a break.
Right.
Go back, go back.
Mhm.
You're missing some stuff.
Yeah. So I would say I probably do a couple of things. I like to, if I'm doing a solo exhibition, I do read through the artist's biography. I read through their statement, and then I try to look at some of their past work too, because I'm looking for through lines. I'm looking to see, um, even though this body of work may be really different from the previous body of work, I'm going to find the through lines if I go back far enough. And so I know
Mm.
it is a chapter, if we're going to use visual, or sorry, literary, as a metaphor. So I am trying to figure out what they're saying, even if they don't have, um, even if I'm trying to figure out how to communicate the story outside of themselves, because they have their own story and all their history inside of themselves. But I want to know what they've been saying throughout all the shows. So
Mm.
that's part
That's
of it.
interesting.
And then
That is an
yeah, and then I carry that with me and I kind of let it percolate a while. I don't do any writing. I don't start arranging the art yet. I'm just like carrying that around with me. So I might read that in the evening and just let it move in the subconscious space too. I kind of like think of it as like a compost pile. Like I want it to move through there a little bit. And then I do the same thing with the artwork. I want to look at the body of work that they've submitted or that we're definitely showing. And start looking for the patterns in the works. They may have imagined it displayed a certain way, but I want to see based on what I've read and what my understanding is of what they're saying. I want to look for the visual language next. So I'm looking at some of the patterns, the colors, the mark making, composition, size. There's a lot of, all the elements of art, plus there's more obvious than that. But kind of,
yeah.
again, it's that through line. And then I'm kind of looking at like, am I telling a story in a linear way based on what I've read about them and what I understand this show to be? Or am I, dancing around a little bit so that you get a glimpse of like, this is an earlier work, this is a much later work. But when you put them together, you too can see that this mark made it over
Led
into
to
this piece. And you can see that in dialogue. And that can be really interesting,
nice.
which is one of the things I did with the Mina show, the beginning of the show and the end of the show. I have a work that she made when she was 8 years old on one side of a doorway, and then one that she made at the end of her life on the other side of the doorway. And they're both with hands at the face. One is a young girl,
Mhm.
and one is, an older woman. And
More
it's like
older.
you can see, even though she worked with so many different materials and styles,
Right.
and you can see like there's the neon works, there's, uh, you know, there's they're everywhere, but you can see the through line.
You can see
You know
the
what I'm
through
saying?
line.
Like
Oh, I absolutely. I totally.
I don't want
And
to tell people what to think, but I think if you can put a few things together in conversation, it's like a two-word poem, right? You're looking at two pieces. Your eyes are going to find that without me telling you.
and that
Hopefully.
and well, no, and that's another reason why I want people to slow down in an art museum and a gallery space. I don't know what the rush is. Slow down
Yeah.
because you can miss those connective through lines, and it is a dialogue. And I mean, I think that's the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because I think a lot of people don't understand that curating is more than just hanging beautiful art. It's deeper than that, because
Mhm.
it can challenge, and art can challenge you. It can also inspire you. It can also make you pause, consider some things in a different way if you allow it. That's why I get so angry. I'm letting it out, people. I'm just letting people know that when I see people do drive-bys in museums, I'm like, Ugh, slow down.
Slow down.
There's the curators did a lot of work here. I because
Yeah.
talk because I knew from the Amina Robinson that you spent a long time living
Mhm.
in her world
Mhm.
and her work to and this is the first stop on that exhibition tour. Do a lot of curators, and then you've encountered and worked with other curators, and you're in the business, you're in this business, this is what you do. it seems to be that's and other even I've talked to gallery owners. They like to sit with the work
Hmm.
before they ever make that first move. Does that always scare you? Does that scare you to make that first move to hang that once you've thought it through that first work? And
No,
no, really,
it
no,
really
seriously, I'm
doesn't.
curious. I mean, I no.
No, and as long as I can see the work in the space, I have an understanding of the relationships between the two. With Amina's work, because we had almost 70 works, and some of them were, as you know, 40-foot long,
Oh God, she has
or
a big work, people. This is
so
big
just
work.
yeah, trying to understand. I work when I'm able to. I work in thumbnails first, but that's not always. I often have to make changes after I see the work in the space because what I understand in a thumbnail, it flattens it out. I don't see the beadwork in her case, or in the case of like works in this show, I can't see the texture. I can't like some of the things
Mm.
I might have missed. Like these two work together better than I thought, or this is the better conversation or the more interesting dialogue. Um, but I think once I see the work in the space and I can start confirming in my mind that the relationship and the negative space and the pacing's part of the journey around the gallery as well. That once we put up a work and start getting it, I actually feel more sure of myself because I'm like, yeah, that's
Oh,
it. There are
ah,
times when you get part of a wall up that you were pretty sure about, or you'll second guess yourself and go, I think actually I wanted this, but I usually go back to the first the first one. Once I've seen the work in the space, because for me it's like I'm coming at it as an artist. Other curators will be coming at it as an art historian, and so their process may be very different. I think that
wow.
lens is different. So for me, when I look at the walls of the gallery, the all six, because we're considering the floor and the ceiling as well, I'm thinking about it as
Mm.
the surface, right? That's the surface that I'm working on. And so I'm just another layer in, making the presentation of the artist's work. So I'm really very conscious about the negative space and the pacing and the pattern and the repetition and where the colors are, because I don't want if they have brilliant color, I don't want to dilute the color. And if they have a lot of fine line work, I don't want to dilute the fine line work by, having the color overshadow this really delicate work. So it's really important for me to think of the entire space as my canvas. So yeah, I
Oh,
definitely approach
okay.
it as an artist.
You really are approaching it as an artist. So that would
Yeah.
be that's so different that would be different for an art historian. I mean, and because which going to say something that's probably going to offend those who are art historian curators. You could have run the risk of making it too academic.
That could happen. I mean, I do know
You know, you
I've
know.
met quite a few art historian curators that are contemporaries that I really enjoy their work. We do approach it differently, but I think that's part of the conversation that's exciting too. But I'm excited to see artists being able to curate other artists' work because I think that conversation can be kind of next level. I'm
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
I mean, it's not
Well, different,
neither is
but
better or worse. I think it's just if you're a visitor coming to see an exhibition, it is kind of another level of interesting to think about. I wonder who designed this or what their sensibilities were, right? Like, if you're
no,
interested in that, I mean, you may not be. People
but
come
I
for
think
all
it's
kinds of reasons, but yeah,
because but I think that that's something that like someone who a museum goers should start considering that it is a holistic thing. It's not just the artist, it's the
hmm
curatorial vision. It's I love how you described the surfaces. Everything's a surface,
hmm
which is like, it's like theater. It's like dance. It's like every surface, the space is so much more
hmm
than just me standing, vertically.
yeah.
It is horizontal across the floor. It's up against the corners of a space. And I just think about all those I approach things differently in that way. But I want audiences to understand like that there's a lot goes into it, that what they see may have been months, years even,
Yeah.
I know because I don't. I mean,
Mhm.
I've learned that I've learned over the course of recently in the last probably last 12 years of my own practice of making art that this is a you're in this for the long haul. There's
Yeah.
no. I mean, I'm like, oh dear Lord, I'm like a year to sit with to make an exhibit sit with it for a year is vastly different than just one-offs or something that you're giving as a part of a group showing. It's your mindset. Everything is so radically
Mhm.
different, and I never considered that as a part of the process of art making. That I'm wondering. I'm kind of curious because you're coming from an art background, and you and I come from an art background and a performance
Mhm.
background, and then we worked together at Antioch
Yes,
on
we
an
did.
exhibition.
Yes, we
Which
did.
let's talk about that exhibition because that was wild.
That
That
was
was
wild. Yeah.
and
So yeah, that was one that came together. I think it was fomenting for a while, but the idea of it coming together, it came together really quickly, which
yeah.
I appreciated about being able to work with you. I'm glad you said yes when I reached out to you. Um, but I was also, it's like, okay, it's nice to be nimble sometimes. And sometimes in a museum, you can't be that nimble because you have to schedule so far ahead. But in an academic setting, um,
Yeah, we had some
where students
flexibility.
are involved and faculty,
Mhm,
you've got your finger on the pulse, and um,
mhm.
having a very socially aware, politically active campus meant that we needed to respond to the moment, and
Right.
it was
Yeah,
exciting to talk about things in real time,
because I was
right?
going right, because we and this is how long oh my god, how long ago was this?
2016,
Oh
roughly
my gosh.
2016. Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
it's no, November 2015, wasn't it? Is that right? No, wait,
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
I don't
Oh my
remember.
god. Oh my gosh. But no, it was in November. It was November 15th because we did it was meme culture. We were doing we because the whole it was interesting. It was like what was the subject?
No.
What was that another thing we did? Oh my god! See, that's time
Yeah,
playing with our
it
mind.
was, living in divided states. Oh,
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
like,
Yes,
déjà vu.
we're back there again. It's a
Living
full
in
circle
divided
moment.
states.
Living
Yeah,
in divided states and
discussing the
had
phenomena of what was happening to our country and what was happening, like, we were talking about, really rich artistic ideas around, like, the rhizome, right? The
right.
and
The
like power structures being decentralized and information being decentralized, and that no one
mhm.
was receiving their information from the same source, and that
Oh,
it was driving our country apart. And it was
and
fascinating.
I remember because it was a whole what was it? What was really great was the variety of voices. I remember that was
Yeah.
the interest. Like everybody had their take on it, but collectively, it led. I felt it led to this conversation that the audience could have, the
Yes.
viewers, that they were hungry for.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of times I think that there's this conversation that art because I've been thinking about our working together because I did create something for another exhibition. That's what it was
Yeah,
because
I remember. Hmm.
mine was about Vogue magazine, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
stuck in my forefront. I can't believe I got men to pose like they were Vogue models. That was pretty funny. You got to see the work, people. You got to understand where my crazy brain goes. But with this one, it was very interesting because um we had a performance art element.
We had DC was invited into
Invited
the
into
gallery, and
space,
they were phenomenal. Yeah, they
absolutely
were wonderful.
phenomenal. And it was this notion that because there's a tendency to believe that art can't have work in the political realm. I don't. I disagree. I would love to for people to come. I think everything we do is political. You cannot divorce yourself from politics, and the culture in which we live, and the society and the culture in which you live. It's all it's in the DNA and the structure, and
Mhm,
artists respond to that DNA structure.
mhm.
of a culture and society, and you want to see the work that they're making in a response. And everybody had these sort of responses. And it
Hmm.
was really interesting because it was in 2015, and I remember it was, well, and this is now it's coming back to me because I left the country in 2016,
Mm.
and it was this is folks that got to understand. It was like Brexit was occurring, presidential election was occurring. It was a very strange time, and I went to London,
Hmm.
and it was like this whole notion of like, oh, the world sees this, but does America see that it's all built in the structures? And we did this work, and it worked out. It was I thought it was a very thought provoking exhibit. We had
Yeah.
I can't believe like we were like, oh, that
I
was a
know.
heavy.
The
That was an
conversation,
intense show.
yeah, the conversations we were having trying to figure out like, why is this happening? How are we? I mean, I think that was the first time that we were really recognizing that literally everyone in the country is getting a very customized news stream, and that we were no longer um, getting the same truth or the same source to parse out with our own experiences. We're just flat out getting completely different streams.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we brought into the gallery a lot of different voices, primarily those that were not being included in the conversation, not
Hmm.
being included, like their rights and voices were not being included. So we had, I know, a Mexican American artist who was making work about police violence. We had quite a bit about actually police violence at the time. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I know
There
we
was,
had a couple of dreamers that had made a short film. I met them in DC when I was at the Creative Time Summit.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
It
a
was
lot of
such a,
conversation.
but it was, I just remember like thinking to myself, that's the diversity of voices,
Hmm.
diversity of experiences. But to your point, there was this bifurcation of information. And
Yes.
that's what's exciting to me is like when you can curate to the times, you can curate to the art making process, and which is or the
Hmm.
aesthetics. There's so many different ways you could go. And that's what I think that's what makes to me curating fascinating. Because that's the first time I'd ever curated anything, by the way.
It was
I
exciting.
was I was nervous. I was like,
I
what?
was too, because there were some obviously arts, you know, do brush up against boundaries or flat out push them, and just depending on how you
Right.
the passion behind what it is that you're trying to say. But I think another thing that arts and artists more often than not are people who are open to ideas, open to trying things, right? I mean, that's part of the experimentation, and open to, I mean, we're all a part of crit environments and seeing our colleagues do work. And so you're open to the idea that other people have completely different ways of doing something than yourself. And so
Hmm.
naturally, because of that mindset, artists tend to be, and it's again not outright, artists tend to be a little more inclusive, or maybe a lot more inclusive. And
Hmm.
so, talking about art not being political, it is, because we all fall on a spectrum somewhere. Our experiences and our way of seeing the world fall on a spectrum. And whether that puts us a little more this way or a little more this way, really, it's not really linear. And you
Totally is
realize
not.
that the more you have a conversation with somebody, you feel like you know where they fall on the line, but you realize you've pigeonholed them because something that you thought they would definitely be a no
Uh,
is a yes. It's like,
Absolutely. And,
but yeah,
but
it's,
this, but that's it. But
and,
isn't that the cool part of what your job
mhm,
is? I mean, it's kind of the cool, like that makes it cool. I mean, hate to tell people, sorry, folks, we have the cool jobs. You should be in the arts. I'm just saying,
really,
you really should be. And it's a,
there's just some beautiful, yeah, really beautiful minds that I'm just excited to know. Like, I'm excited to be in conversation with so many um, people that have walked a completely different life than me, and they're sharing something from the inside of themselves with me and with others. It's exciting.
I love it. So let me ask you a question because I'm really fascinated by like as a curator working with a living artist. What's that like? Because I noticed, like, to do a documentary or to work with a living person, it just, there's something about it, does something for your soul. It just, mm. What's that like to work when you work with an art, like the art, like I'm doing you're doing an exhibition with an artist who's walking, breathing, lives with us in our community,
Mhm.
and you're inviting the world to see their work in the gallery space. What is that process like?
Yeah. I think it's about one of the things I really like to do is elevate and celebrate, you know,
Hmm.
which I think is like when I was first thinking about going into, taking this curation thing a little more seriously and going, okay, I think I could maybe do that. Just trying to understand the origin of the word curate. I'm like, does curate mean like cut out things? No, not necessarily. It was actually came from um, the idea of like priests and monks were responsible for the souls of others. That's what curation started out meaning. And then
Oh,
I sort of loved the idea of like being one that would lift up and celebrate somebody rather than having this, I don't know, stoic, unapproachable affect to my approach. Like I wanted to be somebody who would remain in conversation, remain like a regular person and stay in conversation and make sure that I really understood their work, showed it to the best of my ability, helped them understand when I felt like a piece needed to be edited, not in a way to cut it out, but to like save this piece for another show, another body of work so that there was enough negative space or so that the thesis of their exhibition um, was fully realized rather than having
mm,
something that might again take away from their softer
okay.
work or detract from the work that felt to me most museum ready for a show that I thought they'd be very proud of. And it's been a joy working with living artists, young artists, older artists, just like it's exciting to invite them into the space. Maybe it's their first museum show, maybe they've had several, but it's always an honor to meet them and have lunch with them and hang their work and talk with them and kind of figure out what are their favorite pieces and then, you know, have them write back and go, I really love what you did with the show. And,
Oh, it's so
it's
cool.
kind of like a mutual, um, it's a friendship that I think, it does grow through time. I'm excited to see what happens after they leave
Mm,
here and what other shows they're in. Yeah,
wow.
it's nice.
When you said that, I never really thought about that. I mean,
I'm Bonnie Miles, Membership Coordinator of CET. Thank you for listening to Rodney Veal's Inspired By. This podcast is a production of CET and ThinkTV, two local PBS stations. As PBS stations, the work we do online, on air, and in the community is supported by listeners like you. If you're enjoying the show and would like to support our work, please consider becoming a member at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org. Plus, when you sign up to donate at least $5 a month, you'll get access to special members-only streaming videos on the PBS app through Passport. Learn more at cetconnect.org or thinktv.org.
If you're enjoying this conversation, The Art Show, also hosted by Rodney Veal, is available to stream anytime from anywhere on YouTube or the PBS app.
I mean, I really honestly thought about, like, okay, so what happens? Like, oh, that you've built these relationships with these artists and their art. It is kind of fun to kind of go back. Has there ever been a
Yeah,
show that you've done where, the distance of time, and you've thought to yourself, I would love to bring that person back to see what the work looks like in relationship to what they did X
yeah.
number of years ago?
I haven't been at it too long yet. I think I would consider the first time I started curating was, and a loose version of the word would be maybe a little bit at the end of grad school, so not terribly long, because I taught students and we curated. Actually, the first show I curated with students was called Exquisite Provocations.
Oh,
They were kind of looking at activist art and art that was in conversation with political events, and they were excited. Um, but yeah, some of the artists that we had at the Herndon Gallery were just really terrific artists too. Like there's a Palestinian American artist, Michael Hambooz in New York City. and he was an alum of Antioch College, and he was such a pleasure to work with. And I especially in these times where Palestine and Palestinians are being so cruelly treated, I would really like to invite him back and think about, like, now that his reality is affected even more intensely, like what would he be showing? Because he had really colorful, really accessible works, that not even obliquely political, but I'd be curious to see what his take on the world was and what he was making. I think I will look him up afterwards and talk to him.
But that's the fun part of kind of of working with you, Jennifer. It was like we generated more ideas on top of the ideas that we were trying to manifest, which is I think a part of the artistic process. I think that sometimes to non-artists, they don't understand. Artists geek out when we all get together.
We do.
Do we ever? I mean, how I feel about Big Davis. So that's
Heck
just and it's justifiable, people. It's justifiable. It's just that there's something about it. It's just something, like you said. It's like, it's not about the. I think when people think it's about politics, the art that's really talking about community art, like global events, they think it's one-sided, and most of the art is usually allowing for a dialogue and a conversation to occur as a tool for that, versus I want people to take advantage of seeing challenging art, because I really do believe in challenging art. I like to there's some moments where I've gone, wow, you challenged me, wow. I may not have agreed with your challenge, but I at least acknowledge that you pushed a button. You pushed me to kind of consider it. What would you say to folks who may see things that maybe are outside their comfort zone, especially visual art? Because visual art makes people a little skittish and nervous. I found that nudity scares people. I don't know why, but okay. I don't know. Oh, that's a thing. But
I think certain nudity scares people. I think male nudity scares people more than female nudity.
Yes, I found that out. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So
so what do you say to them? What do you say to the what happens when, and I'm sure you've dealt with this as a curator, where did people come up to you and said, I didn't like that, I didn't appreciate this, doing this? Oh, how do you handle when it's such a viscerally not positive response? How do you handle that?
It's interesting. Like, I haven't had that happen a lot, except maybe in social media. I don't think people, the way social media is now, I think that happens, behind your, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen
behind your back.
As trolling. It'll
As
happen
trolling.
behind your back. It'll happen as third party rather than, directly to you. And a conversation obviously makes it a lot easier, because if you can be in conversation, you can, I can listen to what your concern is. You can listen to where I was coming from, and we can either make a change, or we can let that percolate a little while. Maybe both of us will grow a little bit. But if it happens as trolling, neither of us really get anything out of it.
Yeah. So the trolling doesn't work, folks.
It really doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It just makes you just kind of go, oh, come on. Yeah. I'm open. And that's what I loved about working with you, that you were open. And when you said, because you said the word nimble, I think the nimbleness was the openness to let it kind of manifest itself the way it needed to be manifested, versus the rigidity. I think people think of curators as being gatekeepers in a very strict sense, and I'm not buying that. You cannot be rigid as a curator. You can't be rigid as an art maker. You can't be rigid in the arts at all. I
think there's I certainly don't ever aim to be rigid. I think something that can be confused with rigidity is just finally having to make sometimes you just have to make a decision, and once you're at a certain point, that decision has to fairly well stand, because that show is up, right? Now
Mm.
you can make adjustments at some point if it seems like it's in the best interest of the show or the person, or they're I don't know. I'm just try not to make it about rigidity. I try to stay as open-minded as possible to really think about and listen without trying to come back with a response quickly. I am definitely a percolator. Like at all times, if you can give me a heads up and let me have your idea in my mind for a few days, I will come back with a much more thoughtful reply.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm too
And I
much of
just
a yeah. I'm too much of a hothead. Don't ask me like right away, because I just like, we'll both regret it, and it'll just not be cool. But I understand the measured and nuanced response. And I think that people need to understand that. It's like, that's hence the drive-by. That's why I'm opposed to drive-by and art galleries. So I really have a this is my soapbox stance against people. Take your time in an art gallery space.
Mhm.
Take your time to look at the art under, and then not just the art, but then to add this other element, step back and look how the art was being presented to you.
Mhm.
Take in both, and you will even have a richer experience in an art gallery space. So I'm curious about a show that you didn't curate that made you that just stopped you in your tracks. You thought this was amazing. Everybody has a show that they just loved. I mean, is there a show that there's that show that, oh my God.
I might
Oh,
have to
I'm
come back
saying
to
that.
that. I might have to come back to it. Let me think about it.
Is that wild? I mean, I try to think what mine was. The one that kind of stopped me in my tracks. It was recent. David Hockney, because it was unexpected.
What was your response?
Um,
I mean,
I
what did you go in thinking about David Hockney, and then what did you come out? Right?
so with David Hockney, it was, we were in Palm Springs. I turned 60, and it was like
Happy
I wanted to
birthday.
go see. Well, thank you. And I wanted to see it. I was like, well, if we're here and it's there, I need to see this artwork. And I had seen David Hockney's work in books and monograms, and not really necessarily in person. And then I walked in, and it was like this mini retrospective of his work, but it was so grand. He has a grand visual palette that was so like what it must have felt like to have seen these large scale landscapes. His landscapes. I did not realize how huge they were, large in scale, size, huge, horizontal pieces that were like murals, basically. And they were just so rich and stunning. And I just stopped and I just went, oh, I don't ever want to leave this spot. And it brought a little tear to my eye. I said, he captured it in a way that wasn't like, he wasn't trying to recreate perfectly nature. He gave me vibrations of nature through color, his color choices. And I just went, oh, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do. Yeah.
that's the thing. So that's when I talk about an art, like a
Yeah.
exhibition that makes you kind of go, oh, like, yeah.
Okay. I can think of a couple. As you were talking. So when I was in undergrad, I got to go to. I saved up all what would have been my car money so that I could go to Europe, because the art department, the French department were combining, and they were headed to Paris. So we got to live in Paris for a little bit, and we went to see. I'm going to forget the name of the museum, but it was all of Auguste Rodin's work.
Mm.
And I don't think I'd ever really understood like what sculpture could be, but his work was so passionate. Like his figures, like just the gestures. Like there was a gesture of like a man and a woman embrace, and the way she's touching her toe, like, oh my God. Like, how do you capture that in like bronze, and like that whole gesture, just being so aware of like that little touch? It was just breathtaking.
Oh,
And then others in marble, just I was spellbound, like, again, just like, and then of course going through it, any of the marbles in like Italy, when you look at like the musculature and I don't know, just the tension in a body, it's like
and
it's beautiful.
and you felt like there's something about and that sense of because I respond to especially sculptures from that time frame, especially in
Yeah.
marble. That way, it's the lightness and the heaviness of the human form, because there is a lightness and a heaviness, and it comes through in the
Mhm.
tension and how the skin. When there's a difference between your hand like
Mhm.
this and a hand like that,
Yes.
you can even see it just on like that space right
And
in
that's
here, like.
that
y-
tension, like
Yeah, like turning your fingers and shapes and
stretch. Yeah.
forms
Yeah.
become different if it's flat versus this.
Yes. And so
Ah,
there's the technical, there's the energy, but also like I was just absolutely struck by that level of observation. Like I could
mm,
imagine like you have to really be paying attention to how the body conveys
mm.
um, emotion and energy to be so aware to get that gesture exactly right, where I feel something hundreds of years later,
Mm.
like
Yes.
it's amazing. And then similarly, but in a completely different vein, I would say in Cincinnati, when they held their first Blink Festival, oh my God, the delight,
Oh, I love it.
the absolute like childlike delight. I felt like my mouth never like closed again after it opened with like joy and wonder. Like I can't believe how exciting that new media is to think about like animation and projection, moving light, and the scale of it and the unexpectedness of it. And it's free and it's out in public and it's projected on like alleys and windows. And it was magical. And like, I'm all for it. I think it's the best thing that's happened in a while. Like, it's amazing.
I love
I
that.
will be happy to be their commercial.
No,
Way to
but
go,
that's
Blink.
way to go, Blake. I know
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
covered
And
them
then
on the art.
there was one as part of the Blink Festival at the Art Academy of Cincinnati. Their particular exhibit in that first one was phenomenal. With it, like full installations of television monitors together with hip hop and like animations jumping from screen to screen. It was just incredible. It was so
Mm.
immersive, and it's just so nice to be able to like feel so fully alive and excited and like there's got to be a better word for just joy. Like I was
No.
just so happy. I just wish I had gone alone, which is crazy. I wish there was a whole bunch of people I knew because I just wanted to say, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
Which okay. I hold you to that. Next blink is coming. It's
find
coming.
somebody,
Hello, Jennifer. You and I. Let's get a car. We're just
let's
just
do it.
gonna blink. We're going to blink. This
Let's eat
done.
snacks, let's drink drinks, and go to Blink."
And just talk about this art. And that's the fun part of what we get to do is, like I
Hmm.
said, the dialogue is just as exciting as hanging the art, making the art. It's
Yeah.
everything. It's all of it. It's all of it. And
Hmm.
so I'm kind of curious as we're coming to the end of our hour. See,
Ah, it didn't
it
take.
it
It moved.
doesn't take much. See, I told you. See,
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't
You're
take
good. You're
much.
good. You're good at this.
So my question, I have a question because I just feel like, but what do you say? Because you had to someone who may not think that they want to be an artist, but they may not necessarily be at that place to be said artist. That curating is not a bad thing. What would you tell
I love
them?
it.
What would you
I
what
love it.
advice would you give to someone who may be curious about the
Mhm.
curating process
Okay, yeah, sure. So
as a life?
yeah, I would say, put some shows together. Get together with people that whose work you enjoy. Even, I mean, even if you don't enjoy their work, I'll bet you can figure out how to be in conversation with their work. But definitely, if you've got classmates, colleagues, if you're um, have some art heroes, reach out, and see if there's a way to like put some shows together. I would say if you're still making art, start with your own shows, but maybe invite a person or two to be in a show with you. You can do house shows. You can rent spaces. And like, we didn't even talk about that, but before I was at the Herndon Gallery, in between, like, I got my MFA late in life. I started at 40.
Hey, so did I.
Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that either. I mean, you do your path your way, and it doesn't have to be in a line, for heaven's sakes. It's like, just have fun with it. There's no rules. But yeah, one of the things I did right after graduate school is just, I didn't get a job that I thought I was definitely going to get as a faculty member. So I just started thinking about, okay, what else can I do? And I was really excited about like art residencies, or like activating empty spaces in our community. And so I reached out to like store owners and people that had empty buildings that were trying to sell them. I'm like, do you care if like we talk about like putting up an art show, or having a class here, for just, just the weekend, and I'll hype it up, and people can see your space. And that ended up turning out to be like 5 exciting years of my life, where I was kind of curating kind of a loose arts collective, which was just creative people in my town from every walk of life, who just, had ideas zinging around their brain. And we just tried to figure out as a collective how we could say yes to as many of them as we could and bring them to fruition. And I think that was we didn't make any money, but we sure built up our community in fantastic ways. We hyped that community, and our community loved us back, and like, it revitalized the community. So I think that's a really low risk way of trying things out, and just realize you can hang art in a laundromat. You can hang art in a cafe or a restaurant. There's all kinds of places that would be happy to see artwork up. And I think the public is generally pretty appreciative of collaborative projects when it's the stakes aren't too high, and your enthusiasm can be pretty infectious. So give it a shot. Like, if you hear a few no's, they're not going to all be no's. Somebody's going to think that's a great idea.
Oh,
right?
I mean, no, it's so true. Well, like, I didn't say no when you asked me to curate.
You sure didn't. I was shocked.
Well, because I was like, well, that's the thing. It's like, well, you've never had this experience before. Well, why not?
Yeah.
You never, and well, look what it led to. Being
We're
friends with
friends.
you. We're friends. We love this friendship, and
every
this
now and
joy.
then our paths cross in this really cool way, and we're like, oh, I forgot
like,
how awesome you were.
Yes, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my god! And I have to be full caveat. I am serving as an adjudicator for the members show for the Springfield Art Museum.
This is true, and we're so happy to have you.
I'm very excited, and I really genuinely love that process, because it was really, because it's like, I tell people, I cannot wait for people to come see the show. And I strongly suggest, anytime there's a member show to any arts organization, whether it be the Springfield Museum, Dayton Art Institute, the Contemporary, Dayton Society of Artists, it doesn't matter. Go see those kind of shows, because you get to see that there is such a variety of thoughts and ideas manifested creatively. This is, talk about not wanting to do a drive-by. I just can't wait to, everything's hung, and I can just sit in the gallery and just stare at it all and take it all in.
You come in there, and it's like, that is your community. Like, look at, spend some time getting to know your community. Like, these are all visual conversations. Often we, pass people by and have very fleeting conversations, but somebody's also taking a risk. A lot of these people are that are showing are first time that they've ever submitted something that's going to be viewed publicly. And other people have been doing this for absolutely decades, and they're professionals. But this is our community, and this is the spectrum of folks that are all participating in like a really lovely dialogue visually, like, this is what's going on in my life. This is what I'm making. This is what my process is. This is what excites me right now. Right? That's fun.
Right. It is fun. And that's why I enjoyed doing the process. I was so honored that you asked me to do it. And it was like, because, as I was doing this, because we talked about it on last week about where I stood with the artwork and where I thought of it. And I really thought, it's some really beautiful work, and and there's some really thought-provoking and engaging work and fun and beautiful. It was just, I kept thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to see the next member show with a different curator, an adjudicator, just to see. I'm kind of curious about that. Like what they see differently than I see. That's the fascinating part about it. That's why I posed that question to you, because I think people need to do that so they can understand it, gain a little bit more knowledge.
Yeah.
So that, because it will infuse your art making. It'll give you the courage. I'm going to call it the artistic courage to take a risk to show your work. Because there are a lot of people out there who said, "Oh, how do I start? How do I begin?" I said, "You just got to do it. Try it. You're not going to fail. There are so few. You only fail in an attempt. If you don't attempt, there's no attempt. There's no failure. There's nothing. Zero. If you do nothing, you got to try it. Even if you fall flat on your face."
Everybody has a starting point. Everybody.
Exactly.
If you don't start, you don't move forward at all. Start. Be brave. Make a mark. Put a mark on the page.
Yeah.
Then put another mark on the page if you don't like it.
And then if you don't like that one, pull out another page and start all over. I mean, it's okay. And it's like you will start to then, develop that sort of, that goes back to that childlike wonder and joy that you talk about with Blink. I find joy in making. It's so much fun. It's so like, it just lightens me up. And so, but you get to get the joy of wanting to make the process inclusive and open and supportive and empathetic and all those things, and thought-provoking, which is what you are as a human being. And it's such a joy to be your friend.